Story 1. The Night Shift Cleaner Who Never Clocked Out, Approx. Marcus Hale had worked the night shift at Ridgeway Office Complex for nearly 6 years. He liked the quiet hours, the hum of vending machines, the soft buzz of fluorescent lights, the way the building felt like its own sleeping creature. But in December of 2019, something changed. Something began watching him, and by the time his coworkers realized what was happening, Marcus was already gone. Marcus wasn't the type to scare easily. He was a former warehouse worker, broad-shouldered, calm, reliable. But the building had always had quirks. Lights flickered on the 6th floor, elevators opened on empty hallways, and motion sensors clicked at odd hours. None of that bothered him, but the stairs did. He avoided the stairwell at all costs. Every janitor who worked there did. There was something about it cold, airless, and always smelling faintly of damp stone. Even though the building was modern, the stairwell felt ancient, like it didn't belong there, like it had been built around something older. The first strange incident happened on a Thursday night. Marcus was mopping the 4th floor hallway when the stairwell door creaked open behind him. Slowly, quietly, he froze. No wind ever reached that deep into the building. He turned around. The door hung open just an inch, just enough to see darkness, as if the lights inside were turned off. "Hello?" he called. No answer. Then, from deep inside the stairwell, he heard footsteps. Slow, heavy, coming upward. Marcus stepped back. "Is someone there?" The footsteps stopped. He shut the door and pushed his mop bucket down the hall faster than usual, telling himself it was an old pipe, or an echo, or gravity playing tricks. But a prickle crawled slowly up his spine, the feeling of being observed. The next night it got worse. A little after 2:30 a.m., Marcus was vacuuming the 2nd floor when the building's motion detectors began clicking. Not on his floor, on the 6th, then the 3rd, then the basement. The sensors only activated when someone walked in front of them. Marcus watched the little control panel lights blink one after another, floor to floor, like something was moving through the building. Something that wasn't supposed to be there. He radioed security. "You guys see anyone inside?" The guard on duty replied, "No movement on cameras. Everything's clean." But Marcus knew better. He could hear it now breathing. Shallow, almost human breathing coming from the vents above him, as if someone were crawling through the ducts. He left early that night. By Monday, he considered quitting, but on Tuesday, he didn't get a choice. When the day shift staff arrived at 8 a.m., they found Marcus's cleaning cart sitting neatly beside the elevator. His keys were still clipped to it. His phone sat on the floor. His mop leaned against the wall, but Marcus was gone. Security footage showed him entering the stairwell around 2:11 a.m. He never came back out. The police were called immediately. They examined every inch of the stairwell. There was no sign of forced entry, no loose floor panels, no hidden doors, nothing, except one thing. On the landing between the 3rd and 4th floor, investigators found a perfect handprint smeared across the wall. Not blood, dust. Thick, ancient dust, like it came from stone. But the part that terrified everyone, the handprint was Marcus's big, broad, unmistakable. And next to his, overlapping it, was another handprint. Long fingers, much larger, too large. When the footage was re-examined frame by frame, one final detail was discovered. As Marcus entered the stairwell, the door behind him closed slowly, as if pulled shut by someone standing on the other side. To this day, Marcus Hale has never been found. The Ridgeway Office Complex replaced all its janitorial staff with a private cleaning crew that refuses to work past midnight. The stairwell door is now kept locked at all times, but employees still hear things. Footsteps climbing the stairs long after everyone's gone home, breathing echoing through ventilation shafts. And sometimes, faintly, late at night, someone dragging a mop across the 6th floor, as if Marcus never left, as if he's still cleaning, as if something down there kept him and won't let him clock out. Story 2. Voices in the empty school hallway. Slow burn, eerie, and unsettling. For 31 years, Harriet Cole cleaned Westview Middle School. She had seen it all: fights, pranks, kids sneaking into classrooms, teachers weeping after parent meetings. Nothing surprised her anymore. Nothing until the winter of 2014, when the school began whispering to her. Harriet worked the late shift starting at 4 p.m. and ending around 1 a.m. It was quiet work, the kind she preferred, just her, the echo of her cartwheels, and the distant hum of heaters pushing warm air through old vents. Westview was an aging building, and it creaked like an old wooden ship settling at sea. But once out one January night, as she swept the 2nd floor hallway, she heard something new. A voice. At first it was faint, so faint she thought it was coming from outside the windows. A soft, distant whisper drifting through the cold air. "Here, Harriet lifted her head. Hello? The hallway stayed silent. She shook it off. Schools had strange acoustics, especially at night. Voices from the gym could bounce down the halls, and the cafeteria vents sometimes created odd humming noises. She picked up her broom and continued working. 5 minutes passed. Hear me. This time, the whisper came from directly behind her. Harriet spun around so fast she dropped her broom. The hallway stretched empty in both directions. Lockers closed. Classroom doors locked. Her heart thudded in her chest. Is someone here? She called out, her voice steadier than she felt. Silence. She retrieved her broom, muttering that she was just tired. But when she finished sweeping and walked toward the janitor's closet, she passed by classroom 2B and stopped dead. The classroom light was on. That wasn't possible. She had locked it. Harriet pushed the door open. Desks stood perfectly aligned. The whiteboard was wiped clean. Nothing out of place. But the room felt colder. Much colder. She turned the lights off and shut the door. As she walked away, the lights flicked on by themselves. Harriet didn't look back. 2 nights later, the whispers returned clearer. This time, closer. Harriet. Her blood ran cold. She didn't scare easily, but hearing her own name whispered in a school that should have been empty. That was different. She checked every classroom, every bathroom stall, every stairwell. She knew every inch of the building, and she knew for certain she was alone. Until she reached the library. Westview's library was the oldest part of the school, built decades before the rest. The lights inside flickered. The carpet was threadbare, and every shelf groaned when touched. She hated cleaning it. Tonight she hated it more, because as she pushed her cart inside, every computer screen in the room turned on at once. Blue light washed over the tables. Then, slowly, every single monitor began typing on its own. Line after line. Can you hear us? Can you hear us? Can you hear us? Harriet backed out of the room, hands shaking, and slammed the door. When she reported the incident to the principal the next morning, he brushed it off as a power glitch. The IT guy said it could have been a keyboard malfunction. Nobody took her seriously, so Harriet kept quiet, but she kept listening. The whispers grew bolder. Stay with us, don't leave, help me. Sometimes the voices sounded like children, sometimes older, sometimes desperate. One night while mopping the gym, she heard footsteps running across the bleachers. Little feet, rapid and chaotic. She hurried up the stairs, nobody was there. In the cafeteria, she heard crying. A boy's voice, choked with sorrow, but the room was empty. In the girls' bathroom, every faucet turned on at once. The mirrors fogged, and written in the condensation was a single word, stay. Harriet didn't stay long after that. Her final shift was March 12th. Around midnight, the school went silent, unnaturally silent. Even the heaters stopped. Even the hum of the lights vanished. Then, slowly, the lockers down the hallway began to open by themselves, one after another, metal doors slamming open in a ripple of echoes. Bam, 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 bam. Harriet dropped her mop and ran. As she reached the stairwell, she heard them. Hundreds of voices, layered, overlapping, surrounding her. Don't leave us, Harriet. You hear us? Stay, stay, stay. She shoved through the exit door and fled into the freezing night, her breath burning in her lungs. She never returned. When the new janitor started, he found her cart still sitting outside the second-floor hallway, broom on the floor, mop bucket half full, a trail of water leading toward the library. The principal insisted Harriet retired early, but teachers still whisper about what really happened, because even after Harriet left, the voices didn't. They say the computers still type messages when the building is empty. Lockers still slam open at night. Classroom lights still flicker in patterns, like Morse code, and anyone who stays in the hallway too long swears they can hear someone behind them whispering. Harriet, or sometimes terrifyingly, their own name. Story 3, The Basement Janitor. Nobody ever hired. Slow building, unsettling. Every old hospital has a story it tries to hide. At Redwood Memorial, the story hid underground behind a rusted metal door labeled Basement Level 2, a floor that didn't exist on any map. Harold Baxter, the night janitor, discovered it by accident. He'd been working at Redwood for nearly a decade. He preferred the night shift. Fewer people, fewer questions, just the soft echo of his footsteps and the hum of machines through empty corridors. He knew the hospital like the back of his hand, which is why the new door bothered him. It appeared one night without warning, tucked behind a row of linen carts. Harold swore it wasn't there earlier in his shift. The label B2 was faded, and the doorknob looked ancient, older than the entire building. He tugged it. Locked. He made a mental note to ask maintenance the next day, but maintenance swore they never added a door. 2 nights later, Harold heard something from behind it. A broom, dragging slowly. Scrape, scrape, scrape. He froze. ear pressed against the cold metal. No one should be down there. Then, a voice deep, tired, and muffled spoke from the other side, almost finished. Harold stepped back, heart pounding. "Who's in there?" No reply, just the dragging sound again. "Scrape, scrape!" Harold left the hallway immediately. He didn't sleep that day. The next week, odd reports started trickling in. Old mop marks appeared every morning on the lobby floor, perfectly straight lines no one on the day shift claimed responsibility for. Patients complained of hearing someone sweeping their rooms at night, though Harold never stepped inside occupied rooms after midnight. Security cameras caught glimpses of a figure at the end of hallways, tall, hunched, wearing a janitor's uniform from decades ago. Harold wasn't sure what scared him more, seeing the figure, or seeing that the figure looked exactly like him, but older, much older. One night, Harold finally worked up the courage to approach the door again. His flashlight flickered when he aimed it at the peeling B2 sign. He pressed his ear against the metal. Nothing. He knocked. This time, someone knocked back. 3 slow taps. Harold stumbled away, but the door clicked. The knob began to turn on its own, squeaking as if resisting old, rusted hinges. The door opened only an inch before stopping, like something was holding it from the inside. A cold draft spilled out so cold Harold could see his breath. Then, through the crack, an eye appeared. Cloudy, pale, exhausted, and definitely not alive. "I'm not done," the voice rasped. "There's still so much to clean," Harold ran. He didn't look back. The following morning, the hospital administrator confronted him. "I got complaints," she said. "People are seeing you in places you're not supposed to be." Harold tried to explain, but she interrupted. "And last night, someone used your janitor ID card to access restricted areas." Harold shook his head. "I never left the first floor. When they checked the security logs, every restricted area access swipe happened at 3:12 a.m. Harold was on camera sleeping in the break room at 3:12 a.m. The administrator didn't know what to make of it. Harold did. Someone or something was using his identity. On his final night, he decided to end it. He approached the B2 door one last time. This time it was already open, wide. A staircase led downward into pitch blackness. And faintly barely audible, Harold heard himself sweeping. Not someone who sounded like him. Him, his exact voice. Same rhythm, same breathing. He stepped closer. At the bottom of the stairs stood a figure in a janitor's uniform, his uniform mopping a floor too dark to see. The figure slowly turned its head toward him, revealing the same face, only older, sunken, drained of life. "Come," help it whispered. "We never finished." Harold stumbled back, but the door slammed shut hard enough to rattle the walls. He never opened it again. 3 days later, Harold quit. No explanation, no goodbyes. But the night after he left, the security guard doing rounds saw something that made him resign before morning. The B2 door was wide open, and downstairs in the darkness, 2 voices were sweeping. One old, one new. Story 4. What the hospital custodian found at 3:17 a.m. Most workers at Crestwood Hospital hated the night shift, but Luis Moreno didn't mind it. He liked the stillness, the hallways emptied of chaos, the flicker of machines humming quietly. Nights felt safe to him, until the morning he checked the time and saw 3:17 a.m. That was the minute everything changed. Luis had just finished cleaning ICU room 12 when his radio crackled to life with static, followed by a whisper room 7. It wasn't security, it wasn't a nurse. And worst of all, ICU only had 6 rooms. Luis froze, staring at the radio in his hand. "Who is this?" No answer, just soft breathing. He stepped into the hallway, but everything was unnervingly quiet. Too quiet. Even the usual beeping from monitors sounded distant, muted. Against every instinct, he walked toward where room 7 should be, past the end of ICU, toward a storage hallway that hadn't been used in years. That's when he heard it. A knock. Slow. Hollow. Coming from the abandoned room. Knock. 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 Luis swallowed hard. There was no room 7. No patients. No lights. But at the end of the hallway, a door he'd never noticed before stood slightly open, glowing faintly with a sickly yellow light. He whispered to himself, "This wasn't here yesterday." He pushed the door open. Inside was a hospital room, frozen in time, dusty bed, old equipment, peeling wallpaper. The air smelled of something rotten, and in the corner stood a metal crib. It moved. Luis backed toward the door slowly. Then, his radio spoke again, a strained whisper, "Don't leave me." Luis snapped the radio off and turned to run, but the door slammed shut. Hard. The room went pitch black. Luis's hands trembled against the wall, searching for the knob, for anything. Then something small touched his ankle. He jerked back, heart pounding, and heard the unmistakable sound of a child giggling. Soft. Echoing. Too close. No. Luis whispered. No, no, no. The lights flickered back on, and the crib was now directly in front of him, empty, but covered in fresh handprints, tiny ones, as if something had crawled out. The radio, still off, blared. 317 stay. Luis slammed his shoulder into the door until it burst open. He sprinted down the hallway, not stopping until he reached the nurse's station. The nurse, at the desk, looked up, startled. You okay? You look pale. Luis tried to speak, but all he could do was point toward the abandoned hallway. The nurse frowned. That area's blocked off, has been for 20 years. They went together. The hallway looked normal. No strange door, no crib, no room, no light. As if nothing had ever been there. But something had followed him. Because the next night at exactly 3:17 a.m., as Luis was mopping the main lobby, the automatic doors slid open on their own. Cold air rushed in. On the floor, tiny wet footprints appeared walking toward him, one by one. Luis quit that same night, but security guards swear that at 3:17 a.m., the lobby cameras still capture those small, wandering footprints drifting in circles as if searching for someone. Searching for Luis. Story 5. The security camera that caught the janitor talking to someone invisible. Perfect for narration. When the new school year started at Briarwood High, the security team noticed something odd. The night janitor, Cliff Rowe, kept turning off hallway cameras during his shift. Cliff wasn't the type to break rules. He was quiet, polite, and took pride in leaving the school spotless. So when the cameras kept shutting off between 2:40 and 2:55 a.m., the head security guard, Mason, decided to investigate. Probably a wiring issue, Cliff shrugged when Mason asked. But Mason didn't believe him. The next night, Mason set the cameras to auto backup and watched from the control room. At 2:42 a.m., the hallway lights flickered. Camera 12 went black, then camera 13, then camera 14. One by one, an entire wing of the school vanished from the monitors. Mason grabbed his flashlight and headed straight there. The hallways were silent. Too silent. As he approached the science wing, he heard voices, Cliff's voice, but softer, like he was whispering to someone. Mason turned the corner and froze. Cliff stood in the middle of the hallway, mop in hand, talking to no one. Not tonight, Cliff whispered into the empty air. I told you, I can't stay long. Mason stepped closer. Cliff? Who are you talking to? Cliff whipped around, startled. His face went pale. You shouldn't be here. Mason shined his light down the hallway. Who else is? The temperature dropped instantly. Cold breath fogged the air in front of him. The hallway lights buzzed and dimmed, and at the far end of the corridor, a shadow slid across the lockers, long, slow, and completely detached from any person or object. What is that? Mason whispered. Cliff didn't answer. He just gripped his mop tighter and said, They don't like when you look at them. A moment later, every locker door slammed open at once, the echo rattling in Mason's bones. He bolted. Cliff didn't move. The next morning, Mason pulled the backup footage from the cameras. What he saw chilled him to the core. At 2:43 a.m., the cameras captured Cliff mopping the hallway. Everything looked normal for about 10 seconds. Then something appeared beside him, a shape, humanoid, tall, but its body seemed to ripple, as if made of smoke underwater. It leaned close to Cliff's ear. Cliff nodded like he understood. The figure moved with him, step by step, following every sweep of his mop. At 2:54 a.m., the figure snapped its head sharply toward the camera, its face a blur of darkness, and the feed cut out. Cliff never reported seeing anything strange, never complained, never mentioned the shadow. The next night at 2:15 a.m., Cliff didn't show up for his shift. They found his cleaning cart abandoned by the science wing. The mop lay on the floor, and smeared across the tiles in long wet streaks were words written in dirty water, "Don't watch us." Cliff never came back. No resignation, no call, nothing. Some say he left town. Others say he's still inside the school somewhere on a floor the blueprints don't show. But every night around 2:40 a.m., the cameras in the science wing still shut off, one by one, and when they turn back on, you can sometimes see a second shadow beside the mops and buckets. A tall one, a shifting one, a watching one.